In this 64th episode of the Misaal podcast, you will listen to my conversation with Adil Raza, founder of eLearning Evolve, an edtech startup that develops WordPress and LearnDash plugins and provides services and customized solutions to teachers. Let's listen in. Welcome to the Misaal podcast. Adil, how are you?
I'm good.
So let's get started with a quick introduction. Please tell me a little bit about yourself and what is the problem that you're trying to solve with eLearning Evolve.
I started my journey back in 2019. Initially, I was consulting for LMS projects because my experience so far as a developer has been mostly related to learning management systems. I started consulting at the first place. After that, I tried to look out for hidden queues or places where I can produce something and that could be used by a lot of people rather than just giving services. I was constantly searching for ideas related to my plugin. I got one idea related to Zoom. This is before COVID. Zoom was not a very known name at that time. Kind of figured out that people were looking for something related to video conferencing on their WordPress sites. They wanted to integrate it like within their site. They can have all those video conferencing features, the apps and stuff. It becomes complicated, especially for people who are not very technically good in this. So they were looking for something like this, and I thought it's a good idea. It was interesting to me because it's a new niche, and I thought, why not? I created a plugin. There was actually an existing plugin, but it was not functioning quite well. I tried to, experiment some stuff and update it and, make it much better. It started as an experiment and it went really well. I received, feedback from the customers. They loved it. And that's where, I got the point that this could be something which I can, develop in a very extensive way. So I focused all my attention towards this Zoom integration. And from then on, I think that's my main offering to the customers. And that has, enabled me to grow my company.
How many people are we talking about in your team? Did you develop it yourself? Then you hired other developers, or there was a team that developed it?
Initially, it was just me because I have all that development experience, so I didn't need someone at that point. After that, I used the help of some people for designing and marketing and stuff like that. Heavy lifting was, I think, done by me.
When you become part of the industry, which is in your case, it's edtech, mostly with learning and people who are trying to teach, what exactly is the plugin doing for them as to what problem did it solve for them that makes your plugin like the go-to plugin?
Problem was that a lot of instructors and teachers, they were conducting online video conferencing separately on Zoom and other kind of softwares, but it was kind of very difficult for them to manage it within their LMS. It was like students got a bit confused, go to a different software and download it and then conduct a class there. So they wanted something where they could have this feature within their LMS, and this was the big plus point that I think most of the people were looking for, because it grants them a lot of flexibility. It enables them to adapt the whole structure according to their elements. They could, put restrictions to the page and, allow only the logged in users to attend that class and so on.
There's so many plugins out there, so many free plugins out there. There's so many different tools out there too. What makes a plugin successful in your opinion? Because not only someone has to download it, but also have to pay you. What are you doing to make sure that the customer or the educator or the instructor keeps coming back to your plugin and doesn't switch to something else?
When I got the user feedback, I think that was the critical part of the whole journey, because once you start getting feedback from your customers, I think that's the most important thing. And if you listen to that feedback very carefully and you adapt your product according to that, I think it makes a whole lot of difference, because if people see that their requests and what they want is kind of developing, so they take a lot of interest in that and they hang on to it. So I continuously kept updating it as per the feedback. The response I got was really good. People start to love it more, because there were so many new features that were constantly being added to the plugin that made it a very feature rich plugin. At that point, there were literally like very few competitors, I would say, or even no competitor, because people were not concentrating on this area. The whole concentration on this particular niche started to develop after the COVID. So I had a lot of leverage at that point. I maximized that leverage to the fullest, and I tried to make it so feature-rich that no one could compete with that. And I think that it's a crucial point where you have we develop a win strategy, I would say.
Let's just say WordPress comes out with a native plugin for what you provide. In that situation, like, how do you see yourself, like, pivoting, or What would you do at that point?
I think it's very rare that WordPress would do something like that, because this is kind of a feature that is concentrated on a very specific niche. So it's not something that all WordPress user would like to have it. And WordPress already have, a directory of plugins where there are like thousands of plugins listed. So this thing comes when it's something so closely bonded to WordPress that it becomes, kind of a part of WordPress. But I don't think that this plugin or WordPress would in any way, go towards this area and, develop a native video conferencing tool. It's possible, but I think the chances are very low.
Most of the plugins that I have used have been free plugins. So, but I'm pretty sure there are a lot of plugins out there that I've, well, of course, seen a lot of cache plugins, a lot of plugins that allow you to do SEO. They require like some sort of a subscription. But what's the market like for something that you're selling?
I think the market is pretty good, because there's like two parts to it. The first is the free plugins, which are hosted on the WordPress directory. So there are almost around 50,000 plugins already on the WordPress directory, and all of them have to be free if you're hosting it on the WordPress directory. But there's a parallel sector to that, which is like paid plugins, which people host from their own websites and they sell it from their sites. So this is also a very big niche, a very big market. The thing is, when you create a free plugin, it's like a basic feature set which you offer to the users, and then you can provide some very specific features, turn it into a paid plugin, and then you can you can encourage users to upgrade to the pro version. So most of the people who kind of create a free plugin, they opt for this route, and I think this is a very suitable route for earning cash and providing users with some sort of features as well.
What was the transition like going from like, you were working for someone else before you started this, and now you're working for yourself? Like, what was that transition like, and like, what were some of the challenges that you faced?
I think I had a pretty good starting point, in a way that I used to contribute in an LMS group on Facebook. It was a very popular group back then, and when I worked as a developer and as a consultant, so I used to help a lot of people out there. That group was a strong point for me. And when I created this plugin, I shared in that group, and that's where I got the most encouraging response and a massive response from the users. So I had a very huge chunk of people who were ready to try it out, give it a try, and they were very eager to share their feedback as well. I think that gave me a lot of encouragement to do my own stuff, and rather than working for someone else, I thought it could be a very good idea to build your own thing, and I think it becomes an asset for you.
If you don't mind sharing, can you please tell me a little bit about the numbers, like how many downloads, how many paying customers do you currently have?
Initially, I released it as a free plugin, and as a free plugin, there were somewhere around 5,000 downloads for the plugin. It was in the initial 6 months of the launch, and it was a huge number for me. After some time, I realized that keeping it as a free plugin was not benefiting me and the users at the same time, and I thought that a free model wouldn't be sustainable in the future. So I converted it into a paid plugin after that. Since then, I have been able to concentrate on it much more than when it was a free plugin. So after converting it to the paid plugin, currently I have 2,000 users which I have purchased it so far. It is less than the number of free users, obviously, but I think it's a good number, and it's giving me the hope to continue it further.
Do you personally answer all the queries, all the questions, and provide help desk support?
Yeah, I do. So I have this. I have a number of posts and blog posts that user use to go through the steps, because there are some steps that are very repetitive. So I've created those tutorials for users to refer to. So most of them follow that, and their issues are resolved. But there are some specific cases where they reach out to me. Yeah, so I'm happy to help them and assist them in setting up, configuring the plugin, or having some additional features. It's like all part of the purchase that they make.
Can you tell me a little bit about that part of your business where you do provide consulting to other educators, instructors, and stuff?
I initially worked on LearnDash LMS. That's been my strong point in terms of working towards LMS systems. And I have worked with a number of people who have their systems built on LearnDash. Mostly I have assisted them in development and stuff like that. And I think that's something which gives you a lot of insight into what's going on in the market and what's the need of the time. I have got a pretty good idea about how things are working. by helping my clients go through that development phase. And it also gave me some ideas to create plugins for LearnDash as well. So I have also created some add-ons for LearnDash, and those have been also, some of them have been quite popular in the LearnDash community, because they were like, if you work on a project, then there are some specific use cases that you work on, and you can then convert it into a plugin. And once you create it for one client, then there is a very high chance that many people are looking for something similar as well. So it's a very good thing to work on such projects, because then you get the ideas for a plugin from that. I think that's also been a good part of where I started it. But I started to concentrate more on the Zoom plugin after it took off, and people had a lot of interest in it. So I reduced my consulting part a lot after Zoom plugin. I still do it, but it's very little right now.
Of course, you are bootstrapping your startup and your business, so you like must have had like a lot of ups and downs during doing this, right? Like, so what were the doubts that you had about yourself, and how did you go about overcoming them?
Yeah, there were a lot of ups and downs for sure. I think the biggest trouble or biggest problem that I faced was when I created this plugin as a free plugin, and I started to give all my time to it. And there were so many user requests at that point, because when after I developed the plugin, there was this COVID thing, and that kind of skyrocketed the whole thing. So I used to receive around 20 to 25 or 30 queries each day, and it was so hectic for me to respond to each and every one of them, and keep up to date with that, because at that time there were something like 100 downloads a day. So obviously I was expecting such a huge number of queries, but there was a point that I was giving so much time, and at the end of the day, it was a free plugin, and there was no pricing model at that time. So it became very difficult for me to continue that, and it came to a point that I thought that it's like impossible to continue it further. So that was a very difficult time for me, because I was kind of very exhausted, and at the same time I was giving it all away completely free, which was, I think, kind of a mistake for me. So then I adapted and remodeled my pricing structure, and after that I think things were pretty smooth, because once I converted it to a paid plugin, then I had that confidence that whatever I'm working on, I have that leverage with me that I can continue doing it. So I think after that pivoting, I would say things were pretty good at that after that, and stable. But before that, it was very difficult, and it was a very tough and challenging time.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how big is, like, are there other people, businesses, startups that you know that run plugins from Pakistan?
Yeah, there are a number of them. There is a company named Wo Ninjas, which works on plugins. They have developed a lot of plugins. They have also worked on LearnDash. So there is WP Experts. They have also created plugins for. They have created plugin for MyCred, and they have created plugins for LearnDash as well. And there are also some of my fellow coworkers that started their companies, and they have created plugins as well. So as far as I know, people are coming towards this area. This was something new some time ago, like 4 to 5 years ago. There was no much interest in this area, but since this area is starting to develop and expand, and people are seeing the benefits of it, then I think people are trying to adapt to it and offer some kind of plugin which they could offer to the WordPress community along with their services. So I think the trend towards this niche is starting to develop, and it's kind of expanding.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to tinker with creating a plugin like?
Yeah, I think there are multiple parts to it. I think the first part is being in touch with the community. I think that is something which has been quite rewarding, because if you are in touch with the users, if you know what they're going through and what problems are they facing, I think then you can come up with a very good solution for them. But if you are like kind of out of touch with the community and you just create a plugin out of blue, then it's very rare aware that people would, take interest in that. Doing some initial research is very important. I've also learned that lesson by creating some plugins that I didn't, did a lot of a good homework before developing that, and I thought it would be a good feature. I experienced that it's not like that, and it doesn't work like that. So I think the initial part is doing the research well. And in that sense, you can there are a lot of communities which are very specific to each plugin. That, for example, WooCommerce has their own specific community, LearnDash has their own specific community. So each plugin has kind of its own specific community presence, where you can see all the queries and all the stuff from the specific niche of customers. So wherever it is, be it on Facebook or LinkedIn, I think being in touch with that community is the first part. And then you have to create something like a problem which is faced by a number of people in that community. And you can start with offering services, because that is a good point. It's a good hint to start with, because you get real experience of people facing a particular issue. So if you start with services, then you have like a very solid information about what kind of problems they're facing. So you're not guessing stuff. You are actually helping one client, but in doing so, you can understand the problem that they're facing, and it's very likely and very probable that many others are facing the same problem. So starting with services is a good point. Being in touch with the community is very important. And after that, I think it's a bit of trial and error, because there's no guarantee that whatever you create would be accepted by people, and it would be something popular, because it takes a lot of trial and error to finally get to that one thing which people take interest in. I think you can start with free plugins, and the WordPress that repository is a very good option to start with, because in that directory you get a lot of user feedback. You get the stats that whether people are interested in your free plugin or not. So you don't have to put a lot of effort into marketing at the first place, which is a very good thing. And you can quickly create a very simple and basic free plugin and get an idea and sense that whether people are taking interest in that or not. And if they're doing so, then you can work further on that and create pro plugins for that and paid extensions. I think this approach works quite well, and mostly all of the developers follow a very similar trend or similar path, and there is a lot of success in this model as well. So, and many popular plugin authors have used this approach, like Easy Digital Downloads created a free plugin initially, and now they have a huge number of extensions which are paid. It's a very good example. It's a very popular plugin, and many popular plugins have done it in the same way. I think it's tried and tested, this approach, and I would say that after being in touch with the community and offering some sort of services, having some background about the requirements, the second thing would be you should offer a free plugin. You shouldn't be hesitant to create a plugin, publish it, and see how it goes, and take it further from there. So one point that I would add, that a free plugin, we think that most people think that a free plugin would not, give you a lot of benefit, or it won't be that much rewarding as compared to a paid plugin. But I think if you offer something in free, the feedback that you get from the customer is very, very valuable. So, and this is something which you won't really get if the plugin is paid initially. So, because people would be reluctant to try it out. So if it's a free plugin, many users feel free to, try it out, share their feedback with you. And I think that feedback is very crucial for you, and it enables you to make it, so much better by that feedback. So I think that's kind of an approach that I would recommend anyone to follow.
Can you tell me what your future plans are? Like, where do you see yourself in like next 5 years? Do you have any new plugins that you might release or launch anytime soon, or are you just going to double down on what you have out there and just try to build it?
So I faced some issues with the Zoom integration, and that was the limitations from the Zoom itself. So I was constantly thinking of new ideas, new video conferencing tools, which would be much better than Zoom, or maybe fill those gaps that are still there in Zoom. So I have been doing some research. I created a plugin after Zoom, which was using a different video conferencing tool, but it was not that popular, the tool itself. So I had the problem in getting customers for that. But that was something of an attempt to transition from Zoom to something else as well. So I have been looking into this niche, and I am kind of working towards it, and I might create something which would be in parallel to Zoom or an alternative to Zoom, or even a much better plugin than Zoom itself. So yeah, it's kind of in process at the moment, but I'm hopeful that I'll be able to pull it off.
Good. Well, thank you for joining me today and talking about the plugins and enlightening me about this industry, because I actually had no idea if there were other people doing this. I have seen, of course, plugins, paid plugins and stuff, but I had never spoken to someone who's actually building it behind the scenes. So thanks again for sharing those insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Misaal podcast. I hope you enjoyed the podcast and will thank me by writing a review or sharing it on social media. Make sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks again. See you soon.